that about him. Will admit to that. Likes to be temperamental with the power supply. It probably doesn't help. Catastrophe at my desk right now. I decided that the recording studio and the camera need to be together, so we're trying that. So far I think it's good. This is like my it's a delicate creature. But yeah, had a couch week. Everyone knows. And how I expected it to go. Pathos situation. Really wishing the heater is very nice, but wishing that it did not stress my eye quite so much. This tear duct situation is pretty bad. Pretty not great. It's quite swollen, quite red. Sleep and keeping it closed reduced redness and swelling, so I believe it is an injury. More than it is like a infection, but it is too early to tell. It only began last night, so we're just gonna monitor it, and if it gets worse, we're going to the hospital. I got the difference between a mirror and like a camera bag. But I do got a piece of like shrapnel in my eye, basically. Some little dirt speck. This has happened to me once before where like my cornea was scratched. But never the tear duct like this. Like I can feel it. I'm thinking it's an infection. I should probably go in. But what if I can find it out? What if it's just an injury? I don't know if the I can feel it thing is me just being paranoid with my attention. Can you really feel that kind of thing? I don't know. It's like... just so I can tell, but I can like feel the strain of moving my eye around that much in the orbital socket, and that's how I'm like, oh no, you know, like injury, rest that, don't open your eyes, which sucks because I have like a lot to do that requires some amount of visual processing. Not too much though, actually. Luckily. I meal prepped yesterday and I just amazingly so blessed. I am just a radical nerd for grocery stores. I cannot stress enough how much I love grocery stores and huge fan. I I fucking love food. I just love food, and I'm like, it's honestly just easier to talk with my eyes closed. I hope that's alright with everybody. Yeah, I can feel like it's clogged. I cried earlier too. That kind of helped. I flushed it. That kind of helped. Oops. I took a shower. That kind of helped. But I have eye drops. I think eye drops are the next move. But I think rest. When I rest it, I can't feel it. There's no sensation about it. And I'm not getting like cakey, gunky stuff when I wake up, you know, like you would for pink eye or infection, which is why I'm like, it's an injury, this is injured, just like flush it as much as you can, frequently as you can, and let it rest. That's all you can do. And I'm just like, I hate that. I hate getting injured. It's like the worst thing. Keep doing that, you know, my boxer's knuckle has been flaring up. I'm like, you have not been resting that enough for it to heal properly. And it sucks because it's definitely a combination of like blunt force injury and carpal tunnel. It's a complex situation over here with the might need to become bionic hand. Wouldn't that be wild if I just like this whole thing? Ooh, I hate that idea, but the ghost hand would still have to do all the art. This hand cannot be trained for that. It just can't. I've been contemplating this a lot about like how I am ambitious towards ambidextroisms and like really doing all that stuff. I was like so excited for today. I was like, we're gonna do an entire day of like recording. So much different recording is going to be going on here. This particular like soundscape we're listening to is a almost 8-hour compilation of lo-fi. Right now it's sped up to 2x speed. But lo-fi and my plants and like kitchen noises, and it's just like, it's so good. I forgot that I had all of these, and they're like new, they haven't been posted before, so I was like, oh sick, if I get this off my plate and we can like, yeah, get this out there, then kind of like load. I don't know, I just get this feeling that once the plants are no longer living in like a dead format, just waiting to get, you know, brought back to life. Oh, here, yeah, brought back to life, you know, once these folks are back out there. Oh wow, that's like going behind a curtain. That's nice. Yeah. Just the perception of being perceived is its own weight. It's so true. I do want to know what I did that got something in my eye, though. Like, last night I was mocking myself because the top blanket that I have on my couch is shouldn't be that hard. I can see it much better than you can see it, but it's like the rainbow, vaguely reminiscent of sheep's wool, like pelt status blanket that is just like definitely plastic of some sort, but it has that fibrous, like holding things quality that sheep's wool has. I don't know how to explain that better, but it's just like the top thing of it. It's great. I think it's a Costco blanket, to be honest, but it can hold things in it. So I'm like, the cat loves to sleep on this. So what if she got like kitty litter out, like on her paw, left it on the blanket like tilted into my eye while I was napping, and I have like cat poop in my tear duct right now. Like, what if that happened? What if she has worms and there's a worm in my brain now, is really what I'm thinking, honestly. It's like a deeply intrusive thought that I cannot ignore. I did read Stephanie Meyer's The Host. Yeah. I was learning about the Church of the Latter-day Saints at the same time, like through Stephanie Meyer, Brandon Sanderson, and Ellen Hopkins. Writing Burned. And Burned 2. And I was like, dang, this is a situation. And then all the reality TV shows. Yeah, The Sister Wives, I think it was. Oh my god. But yeah, so that's my theory. If it's bacterial, that's my theory for how the infection occurred. That's all I can think of. It's either that or I like touched my eye while doing my own absolutions absent-mindedly, which would also suck because that is a certain amount of inattentiveness, like bodily inattentiveness, that I do not like to have or exhibit. So super uncomfortable with that. Not stoked. Would rather it be pink eye than the like worm cat poop scenario though. Like, oh my god. And I know I'm probably just paranoid, and it's probably like a scratch from me just aggressively doing that the first time I felt an itch. Like I had gotten something in my eye. What I should have done was flushed it, but instead I just rubbed it, and so I'm guessing that that's what happened. If it was the cat poop scenario, I feel like I would have felt that right away, right? Like, ugh. And I started feeling this in the kitchen. The injury occurred like right there at that time, in the kitchen. And it was so small, and it was so definitely my fault that I just did not want to. I would rather have like paranoid cat poop worm brain. I don't think I would actually rather have that. Like, please. Oh, I hate paranoid intrusive thoughts. They are just the worst thing. It's pretty bad. I don't know. It's not good. I'm just glad I meal prepped. I meal prepped so hard. I won't have to cook for like 2 weeks if I don't want to. A week and a half, definitely. 5 to 7 days for sure. God. I've also just been like under the weather of our hostile government takeover. You know, in all ways. That's been fun. Real great stuff there. I really think we should food not bombs the like immigrant concentration camps that have always existed but are now being talked about as though they are new. They've been going on since Obama and before. Like this is not a new This is an exaggerated and like very in-your-face version of the fascism American imperialism was already exhibiting. And it's because of an out-of-control oligarchy and a deeply disproportionate valuation of property over people in the way that our legislature is organized, and a lack of like protective anything for our governmental systems when it comes to certain modes of exploitation, and those things need to be changed and fixed. And so I feel I've been listening to my casts, you know, and thinking about the room and being like, wow, this is so insensitive in the light of like this week and 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It was reassuring to me, and now it just strikes me as like deeply offensive and upsetting. And I'm like, yep, that's the political environment you decide to speak into, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you fucking knew, and then you did that. I'm trying to let myself cry because, like, if there is any blockage, it should get flushed as much as possible. But every time I start thinking about crying, I find it harder to cry, and it's just caught up in that super fun cycle. Yeah, this one was much, like, nothing came out really. There's a blockage for sure. I think I should work on, like, flushing that more, like, maybe. I don't know. It could be a bacterial infection, too. But I think something got in my eye, and I rubbed it in, and I injured the area surrounding it, and then there's something in my tear duct now. I need, like, a good sob. And there's so much to cry about. But, yeah, how are you supposed to be, like, okay right now? I don't think anybody is. I don't think anybody with a heart is, and I think most people have hearts. I mean, you couldn't possibly call Trump or Elon Musk okay, right? Like, that's not okay behavior. People experience, like, nothing about any of that could possibly be great. I remember one of the ways, because, like, being into anime or Japan or whatever, or Asia, being interested in Asia, as they used to call it when I was growing up, didn't always used to be, like, a sign of being cultured, or it hasn't always, and that's always been the case, right? Across borders, across experience, across history, being, like, interested in the different countries' ways has always been somewhat threatening to national borders and identities. That's why American nationalist imperialism is such a problem. That's why it was a problem when it was German too. Like, this is not a new experience in the world, and it's not a new story. We all know how this goes. the interesting part right now is more about like who's gonna do what. And one of the biggest things that made me feel like freaked out about everything that I said during the last 2 seasons of casts has been I mean, there was a lot that kind of freaks me out that I said for a variety of very different reasons. But one of those things was just how difficult it was to keep the thread of what I was trying to say when the awareness of 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 the awareness is allowed to intrude upon my train of thought, which happens more easily sometimes than others, quite obviously. But yeah, listening back and being like, you know, having different experiences and being like, oh, this is reassuring versus this is alarming, and seeing how quickly some of that stuff inverted or how true some of it held or how much of an impact it had in retrospect versus at the time, or the vice versa, and being like, no, I treated it like I was trying to say something in a way that was kind of a math problem, and the main math problem was more like how many times can you say the same thing backwards and forwards in a way that'll really like drive home the point. That was the challenge. It was like, how many times can you like wind your way to the same point from all your different starting points and with all your different biases and all of your different like complex human nuances that would otherwise make it difficult to talk into certain groups or certain rooms. Can you make your point heard everywhere? And the feedback I got, psychically speaking, was yeah, which is cool. That's great. It was not impossible. It has been done many times, so not surprised. Stoked and poked, yeah. Uncomfortable, sure, yeah. Some of the criticism was crushing, obviously. Criticism tends to be quite devastating in my experience. I like letting things crush me a little bit though. It's like, and then whatever remains is like, okay, you know, like, and then we go with that. Little deaths, very petite morts, really, really extra small. Hard to get that small sometimes. You have to get, like, the focus of it. I don't know. It's difficult. I feel like that cry kind of helped. I don't know why. I will, during the intermission, flush and use eye drops and stuff. I have done that multiple times, though, in the last, like, 12 hours since the injury occurred. Closer to 14, maybe. Yeah, 14 hours. It's been 14 hours. Ugh, this knuckle. It's so bad. I can feel it. I want to go to that, like, hand doctor. There's a hand doctor in the other town. I want to be like, can you assess this injury for me? But I think I need a referral. I think I need to go to my primary care physician. Sometimes you just don't have room for all those loops. But we should make room for the healthcare loops. I agree on that. Oh, really excited about the food prep, and the food in general. The kitchen is going off. I can't, like, express how much respect I'm learning for labor in a general sense by trying to make every meal from scratch, and, like, high quality, tasty stuff that I would buy at a restaurant. I was like, I've worked in restaurants. I love food. I love cooking. I can make this. Like, I have educated myself extensively on nutrition. And, like, a lot of different aspects relating to food. I could probably synergize all of that into, like, a healthy kitchen in, like, a really awesome way. Synergizing is hard work. It's dervishing. It's making Tasmanian devil spins as many as possible. It's a whirling, twirling computer fan situation, but usually faster than that and more pointed. There's a lot going on there. It's a difficult one to do. But it's fun to synergize. It really is good stuff, and cool things come out of it. The best stuff comes out of like synergized complexity and nuance. My personal take, but doesn't mean you can't struggle with health, and I sure do. I think I've been very clear about all the ways in which that's going on. So, it's just such a universal human experience to talk about health and healthcare, especially at this point when we've gotten really nuanced about like what we consider the social contract to really be surrounding health and healthcare. And when you look at models around the world and you see the way that health and healthcare looks for some and as opposed to others, you start just thinking revolutionary thoughts. Oh yeah, no, the amount of like psychologically working through whether or not I consider myself to be spreading sedation or in other ways like genuinely acting as a traitor to the state, like I'm not a traitor to the government I signed up for. My civic duty is clear. Yeah, my civic duty is very clear. Civil disobedience is definitely the mode. It's the choice. Consumer power harnessing is the choice. Labor organization is the choice. Like, it's time to move. Which is weird because I am going to be staying right here, focusing on not falling as much apart in a variety of ways. But it's really fun to be a part of and to like see it happening from my super safe and secure privileged perspective. Yup, sucks. I signed up. I literally said, let me be the cheerleader / commentator on the revolution according to my own values, and you don't have to necessarily engage with it or respond to it at all, and I will just continue to say what I think. It's not going to be comfortable all the time or necessarily at all. But I felt really complete when I did that, you know. And you can tell when you are really fully embodying yourself, because your personal narrative time stream starts to feel like it could flow both backwards and forwards. I don't know how to explain that better, but your understanding, your perception of your place in your own narrative is I guess fully present. And so your perspective in the backwards flow and the forwards flow of time, which is a really rudimentary way of describing time, but given the linear order that we need in order to communicate verbally about this concept, this is the best I can do. But that's what I would describe as like fully embodying your true self, is that sensation of like time could potentially either go backwards and forwards, because every decision you've made leading up to here really informs what you're like seeing into your future and what you want from your future, and it looks good to you, or like at least it looks like it makes sense that every decision prior is lining up with before. And that kind of sensation is something we chase as creatures, so sometimes we'll be like almost too quick to decide that like, yes, every choice I've made in the past has led me to here, and this is what I'm doing, and that's where I'm going. And that's kind of that like locked into your charts, like being the doom, self-fulfilling prophecy, all this stuff that like honestly most people live their lives as, which is why so many people refer to one another or like others as old souls versus new souls. This idea of like, oh, you're really locked into your charts, or you're really like just stuck in the time stream, sort of, or in this idea that and the point I'm trying to make is it's more like you're stuck in this idea that that's the case and that it's all aligning, but you didn't actually interrogate it enough to give yourself true reassurance about it. And so you're just kind of moving through life assuming that all of your decisions have led to like where you are and that your future is feeling good about you know it is like, am I really me? Like, am I really embodying my truest self? It's like you have to, and this is a luxury of time, but examine and interrogate your choices and decisions and see how they've led to this place, and whether or not that's like something you are satisfied with or approve of, blah 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 blah. Wow, I just did blah 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 because my ACER turned off. I'm really sensitive when the workhorse decides to like stop working, because usually he never gives me problems, but this is a really loose power cord. I actually don't think it has anything to do with that one time I got it wet. I think it's the socket or the cord. It might not be the cord it came with. We could try different cords. That would probably work. That's another thing too. People are really afraid of the hardware layer, just in a general sense. Very scared of hardware. In a digital sense, yes, but like in a personhood sense too. There's a bare metal aspect of your persona and who you are. Oh yeah, see, I just jiggled the cord. Oh, yeah, that's totally. I should try. I'm gonna just unplug it for now. Oh. Yeah, that's just not fully seated. That wasn't even the power cord. Yeah, it was the HDMI. There's no way. It's just I need to turn it upside down and like. Yep. But oh my god, the suffering, right? that's pretty much it. It's like, how are you doing? I'm suffering, but in like a normal, I think this is an appropriate level of suffering given the world kind of way. I am familiar with the concept of like not necessarily embodying the pain of the world and like allowing it to stop further out from you and like not let it touch your life or your spirit quite so much. I know, and that's true. For the most part, I'm not doing that, you know, I'm making good food, I'm going for walks, I'm drawing, I'm writing, talking to people, having a life. But if life is good, right? I feel empathy increases. I feel that I'm fairly convinced actually. There's a lecture going on today at the campus about altruism research, and I'm like, oh, I want to go to that. I like really want to go to that, but I just don't feel fit for I don't feel fit for crowds. I don't feel fit for lectures. I'm like, oh, my eye, and like, bleh. And I know I'm totally being a baby, but I'm willing to let myself be a baby because I know I'm gonna like go way harder than I should near the end of the year. So I tend to baby myself during the spring. It's my birthday after all. It's my birth season. I do think people should baby themselves during their birth season. And like, who else is gonna baby you at this point? You're an adult, right? Like, I think part of our damage, you know, this generational trauma of like earning anything through suffering, through enough suffering. That's what's gotta go. Like, we need to earn stuff. I propose we earn things through joy now. Just invert the is it Presbyterian? Pilgrims, Mayfair, Presbyterian. The witches in Salem, Massachusetts, canonically memorialized by a play that starts with a C. It's the one that everybody actually enjoyed in literature class, and I was predictably salty that everybody decided to like a book, and it happened to be the one about witches that I was like totally planning to enjoy by myself without all those bitches. God. Oh, such a book snob. I know, it's my worst quality. One of my worst qualities. Yes, I think so. I think anything that adds to people feeling stupid is not good in a culture where everybody is already like conditioned to consider themselves subpar intellectually. I'm like, I get that to some extent it's a protective feature for people who are so psychically powerful, but it's also really fucking infantilizing and deeply condescending. So I'm really not a fan of any of that. Gosh, but yeah, the cure, the cullet, the curse, the crow, the crucible, I want to say the crucible. Deep word choice. Straight to sand and lightning right there with a crucible. Is that what it was called? I think that's what it was called. It was a play that canonically memorialized the Salem, Massachusetts witch trials. That is American education system approved reading material. to learn about the ways in which cruelty and mob mentality can get out of hand and end up harming people, innocent people, and women specifically, and specifically like healer women or intelligent women. A lot of cool stuff going on in the Crucible. Is it called the Crucible? I'm like, is that what it was? I'm like, it starts with the C, I know it, but it's all stuck in there with all the other C words like coven and cunt, so it's like really fucking difficult to access sometimes. Play by Arthur Miller, yes. Cool. I'm smart again. Yay. Approved. American education system stamp. That's totally how I decide whether or not I'm still an American. I decided that a long time ago in community college, taking a political science class, and it was a really good class that I failed, and I'm so glad I failed it. But the book had Obama on the cover, and I was like, oh, these publishers are up to date. They are ready to go. So that was the first indication that I had that, like, all of my tormented, like, yearningly painful hope of a better world, desire for social justice and an environmentally sustainable future wasn't like completely out of grasp or like not within our reach. I was like, just considering what I know of like how publishing works, the fact that they got Obama's face on here like 1 to 2 years after his first in a, you know, like day. Some people are like ready to go. Some people are ready to go, right? And so I just started thinking, okay, let's take statistics, the math. What I really learned from the American education system is that every theory that you have really functions better if you use the 4 like cornerstones of education, like fundamentals, right? Like the math, the social, the literature, historical. I don't know if like, yeah, math, history, literature, and natural sciences, I guess. Yeah, earth science, natural sciences. That's unifying enough of a term for now. Empirical research, maybe. But these like cornerstones of how to interpret the world are pretty solid foundational cornerstones I've found in building and testing theories for like my life and how to be and just like what's good for me and for people and all of these things. But I was like, let's take statistics and let's take the story that we've painstakingly strung together about the history of our species, which it's not like I was struggling alone to painstakingly piece this together. I mean, there are so many academics who've been toiling away across borders, across the entire world, outside of the world even, in a lot of ways. The people who live up on the ISS, I assume, can see the space trash every day. So that's got to be motivational in some capacity. That's got to be getting translated, right? I start just like making these assumptions like, okay, we as a species have enough of the picture of the elephant in the room to be really piecing this together at a large scale, and this information is available through like search engines. So at this point, it's a war of ideas. It's an information campaign. It's educational campaigns. It's positivism. It's reorientation towards interdependent system thinking. It's training people towards interdependent system thinking, right? Like, this is a lot of heavy sounding shit that a bunch of people kind of only just, like, the cutting edge of science, really, and these are all just things I, like, piece together from my understanding of the world and population size and what is probable, right? I did a lot of probabilistic assumption making, informed guessing that I was encouraged to do by my educators when I expressed nervousness over test taking. They were like, look, make the most informed guess. And I'm like, all right. And it works. And I was like, okay, all right. Could we get better informed? And obviously that's the information race in the world, is who has the best information and who can make the best predictions with that information on behalf of their own people in a way that is, like, not going to actively instigate a genuine weapons of mass destruction event or instigate any of these other competing intelligences that we have suddenly realized are in the room, in the neighborhood, in the air, right? And I'm speaking purely to the public consciousness, right? Like, these are things that are being teased out in alien movies, as I've mentioned. These are things that are being teased out in different forms of storytelling and narrative and communication around the world. One of my favorite things about the three-body problem is not all of the true things that book illuminated, because, oh my god, what a beautiful, like, way to illuminate truth, but it was all of the very specific lies that were being told in that book, and I was just like, yes, thank you. That was a cognitive liberation movement, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, but one of the biggest lies that I thought I saw in the three-body problem was that the proton layer of quantum psychology could be locked. I don't think that that's possible. But I don't know. I think if you believe it's possible, it becomes real. Because that's kind of the point of reifying, or that's sort of how social constructs function in the interplay between people and in our idea of ourselves, our perception of ourselves, is that when you believe in something, it becomes real to you. And when things are real to you, when you act them out in the world, you can kind of, like, with very small things, like the layer of quantum psychology that I'm discussing here, like the focusing point of your very tippy top attention, but that particular layer is so small and nuanced that you can impose your will upon that to a certain extent and make that reality real simply by believing in it. So there's your magic. But that's also how you get, like, severe mental health problems, disassociation, and, like, other things that make it difficult to function in the world. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a clinician, I'm not an expert, I'm not a healthcare professional. So please don't take all of your advice from me. I don't think I'm the best reliable narrator. I don't think I was trying to be a reliable narrator. That was kind of the point. I think that we are all smart enough to come to our own conclusions about all of this stuff and act independently, but with interdependent goals. And I think we have to, actually, is kind of more my point. I think we, like, really need to, if we want to survive as a species. And wouldn't it be cool if it was our generation that, like, helped shape all of the future of human life into more altruism and, like, genuine life satisfaction overall? And really, part of the argument that I did not voice the other day when I was discussing anarchism and the differences between, like, do you think that people are interdependent social creatures who literally require community and social support and social contracts in order to survive and thrive, or do you think this other thing, or do you hate yourself, I think is what I implied. uh, but we have been taught to hate life, right? And I keep thinking about like this necropolitic, like taught to worship death sort of behavior in us, and being like, is that from an outside agitator, or is it a natural expression of the pressures we're currently under? Is it, and who knows, right? But one of the things that I didn't mention during that was how a part of the argument about this, like, dark forest, scavenger's reign view of being in the world, right? And this is the thing, it's like, it's scary. It's environmentalism is hardcore, metal, terrifying, because you have to acknowledge the interdependent network of everything in order to understand the macroorganism that exists, right? Like, from a biology standpoint, from like an empirical data observable universe, we have lots of really good rigorous methods for testing these things now. It seems to replicate across like a lot of different environments that give us a significant amount of confidence about these topics. So so when you start thinking from the perspective of environmentalism and how interdependent everything is, from the smallest organism to the largest organism, you really have to start thinking what would be the largest organism. And it is convenient that what would be the largest organism has aligned so well with our rejection of a god. And when I say convenient, I mean it is good for our species that that's the case, because could you imagine becoming aware that there could be species in the universe that are like kind of low-key large enough to impact our daily life in a deity kind of way, and then realize like, oh, it kind of made sense for our ancestors to worship them. And then the minute you start thinking that, you're like, who's them? Were they here? Did they visit us? How involved have they been in our development and our progress? What, like, the suspicion clouds really start forming, at least for me, whenever I get deep into the discussion of aliens. This is how it goes. And I think about aliens a lot because aliens is one of the words that people use for immigrants. And I'm like, oh, well, Einstein was an immigrant, and like immigration versus emigration and all of these different nuanced topics that honors the humanity of the people involved being given to me in an academic format. And honestly, in California, in a way that truly like connected that research to a application when it comes to immigrant rights and different forms of legislation and policy change and things that really began honoring people in the community, in the state, in the country, over profit. And I personally, coming as an outsider who loves to romanticize things, saw that as like the teeth of the entertainment industry, honestly. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, you dehumanize an entire industry of people, but like deeply require every last drop of their creative talent for your stupid death machine. They're gonna break you, like, with their bodies. You can't eat that many souls. Like, you just can't. So when I learned, like, and I didn't move to California for that reason. I moved here because trees, pretty romantic things. Literally just so romantic. But I dwell on it because living here, deciding to move here, the strain it puts on my family for us to be separated, you know, my larger extended family, all of the different ways. My family, especially growing up, was very close. Like, we would get together 2 times a month, and there's like 15 or more of us. It was the best. And so me living alone in a different state, kind of like, not, I personally wasn't stoked. I can't speak for the rest of the family, but I wasn't, I was kind of sad. But I've been dwelling on this, like, why is California so special to me that I'm willing to, like, estrange myself from my roots to this extent, and to, like, replant and genuinely transplant to a different state. And obviously I take things very seriously, and I tend to think of things from the perspective of social contracts and civic duty and government, because I'm genuinely interested in these topics. But one of the things that I thought about as I was dwelling on, like, why California, and thinking back, like, retroactively thinking back into my past and interrogating decision making, like, was it really, like, all romanticism, or was there some part of you, I mean, there had to be some part of you that did some kind of mathematical assessment and went, like, yeah, California is an acceptable transplant choice, right? Like, people always do the math first stuff, and so they're interrogating that. It's like, oh, did you come here because they're the 5th largest economy in the world and you just, like, wanted to be somewhere rich? You just wanted to be, like, cool like the Californians? And I sat there and I thought about a conversation I had with my friend Joe, where he was like, you want to be rich. Everybody wants to be rich. Nobody doesn't want to be rich. They just don't want to admit that they want to be rich, because then they would be bad people. People don't want to be bad people. I'm like, I think people want to have enough, and they've been trained to think that wanting enough is immoral. But I digress. Did I want to come to a place where the lowest of the low were treated better because the people who made more money chose that? Yes. Yeah, I want to live there. And if I want to be one of the people with more money, or one of the people in positions to, like, write policy, or any of these other aspects of moving states or participating in your society, that's lifelong work. Like, that's satisfying stuff. That's the type of participation at every level that I kind of signed up for when I signed on to be a citizen of the world, more than, in my heart, more than a citizen of any one place. And I think that that was a very important and serious decision that I made as a young person, that I had to reinvestigate as an adult and really think about what that meant to me, and then figure out what that looks like in practice. And it would be worth it if other people did the same. Like, why are you here on this earth? What is your responsibility to the biosphere? And how are you contributing to the positive future of our species? And if you're not sure, ask your younger self what they would have wanted. See what you come up with. I love that conversation. It's usually a really fun one, full of wonder and curiosity.